of our expert guests. We have joining us Ambassador Neelam Deo, co-founder Gateway House. We also have Michael Kugelman, who's from the Wilson Center in the US. Good morning to both of you. If I could come to you, Ambassador Deo, what do you make of the projections so far? Because none of the states that have been projected so far by different networks seem to have been flipped. Again, blue is staying blue and red is staying red, although red right now is a fairly larger number compared to the blue.
No, I think that's exactly right. These are states that are already deemed to be either blue or red, and they have come out with those projections. As you know, a lot depends on what percentage of votes has been counted. And other than the Fox projection, everybody else seems to be arriving at more or less the same state. So no surprises yet, even if it looks as if former President Trump is way ahead. But that's only because big Republican states like Texas and Florida have already been called by the networks.
Yes. Michael Kugelman, why do you think this is the case? Why isn't it a case where blue flips blue, red, and the other way around, even in these states? Why is it just boiling down to what is being termed as battleground and swing states, and just 7 of them out of a total of 50?
I should mention first that I'm not Michael Kugelman. I'm Michael Davis.
I'm sorry.
Michael
I'm sorry.
Kugelman,
I was given the name Michael Kugelman. I apologize for that.
He's my colleague at the Wilson Center, but I'm not him.
Okay.
I'm Michael Davis.
Well, great to have one Michael with us. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Davis, yes. No, the thing is right now we're getting a lot of votes that are from red states, and so it's going to make Trump look like he's far ahead, but I wouldn't expect that to continue for a long time. Another thing that happens in the vote counting is rural areas, which tend to be Republican, even in swing states, will come in first before urban areas because of the challenge of counting the votes. So those swing states are important because of the electoral college system. So we know already pretty much which states are going to go Democrat, which are Republican, and it's these swing states then that will determine the outcome. And right now, the most important one is Pennsylvania.
Yes, it certainly is, where again we had certain projections which showed that it might be Kamala Harris might be leading, but very few votes even projected at this moment. Ambassador Deo, what do you make of the fact that you have had elections where Trump has only managed to hold on to one, which is the last time around, which is North Carolina, among these 7 swing states. But most essential for Kamala Harris, it seems, is the blue wall states that she needs to hold on to be able to win this election. Right now, the projection numbers changing as well. 162 for Donald Trump and 81 for Kamala Harris. And this is essentially the Edison research numbers that have been given out by Reuters.
I think these are going to change as the day progresses, because if once Pennsylvania is declared, which can take time, and in the last election, you will recall that it took 4 days for Pennsylvania's result to be accepted and for Biden to have won. So I think we shouldn't be reading too much into this, but it is interesting that red states are staying red and the blue states are staying blue, which would imply that despite all the difficulties that the Americans feel they have gone through in the last 4 years with inflation, cost of living rises, the wars in, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Israel-Gaza war, not much has changed in their voting patterns, at least so far. We will find out as the day goes whether, in fact, it influences voting in any declared states which are red or blue, and most importantly, whether these difficulties, the abortion change of law, these things, whether they make a difference in these swing states.
Right. Now, if you talk about, you mentioned some of these issues, you mentioned the economy, you mentioned the wars, the difficulties post-COVID, the cost of living. But let's talk about some of the other issues as well, which have not perhaps figured as much in the debate around the elections. For example, the changes in the composition of the Supreme Court, the possible changes that can happen in case Donald Trump again becomes president, how the composition could be changed even further from the way he intended it to be. Michael Davis, and even the issue of environment has been talked about as much as it really concerns the world, because we've had COP happening at this time as well. But in the election, it doesn't seem to have been figuring as much as one would have thought.
Well, I think the problem now in the U.S., and it's sort of a characteristic of the Trump era, but it's also a very modern problem in many countries, that people are getting all their information in information bubbles. And so if you're on the political right or Republican supporter, you don't hear much about the issues you just mentioned. Those issues aren't prominent. Trump is a kind of climate denier. And so a lot of the people that support him think the climate problem is environmental problems are overblown. And Trump, of course, pounds these issues in every chance he gets. So this is, I think, a problem we have. Even on the economy, actually, economists look at it, the economy's performed better under Biden than Trump, actually. But if you listen to the Republican media, the Fox News and so on, you would think the economy's in shambles. And so I think this kind of disinformation that people suffer from in the current state has been a big problem in U.S. politics and also in many other parts of the world, in many democracies. And so populist leaders are able to promote ideas that may not hold water. And Trump, of course, is very famous for making up things. And there's a score on how many lies he tells that's phenomenal. These are kinds of things politicians in the old days couldn't get away with, but in the politics of the present, they can.
Well, certainly, and one would have thought that the issue of environment, climate change would become prominent with the kind of hurricanes that have been hitting the U.S. from Florida, where Trump himself is at the moment, going up to North Carolina. But only the response to the disaster has been a bit of a focus in the election and not the root cause of it. Let me now bring in my colleague Anil Thomas, joining us from the newsroom to talk more about what's really happening in terms of the projections and possible way right now how the numbers are coming in. Anil, it again is completely hinging, as it had always been projected to hinge upon, the 7 battleground or swing states. Right now, no flips anywhere else.
Well, good morning, Gautam. Well, that's exactly what everyone is looking for with bated breath, especially in 2020, the swing states. Many expected Trump to come out strong, but Biden managed to flip many of them, and this time around we're still waiting for the swing states. Purely in terms of projections, some saying in some places voting is just closed, but in many places analysts say it's going to be a neck-to-neck race. So those 7 swing states could decide the fate of this particular elections. I think the way things stand at this point of time, 81 to 154 with regards to 47% of vote for Kamala Harris and 52% for Trump. Clearly indicative of, a big gap opening, but we'll have to wait slowly and watch for the swing states when they come into play. And that's where, the big game is going to be, especially Pennsylvania, as mentioned by one of the experts. It took almost 4 days for their results to come in 2020. And if, things don't go the way Trump anticipates, we could see a long drawn battle, especially a courtroom battle that could, unfold in the days to come.
Yes, certainly. What's really happening in Iowa? Because that was again looking like a state that could be flipped. If you look at, if you consider the opinion poll, very controversial and very much talked about opinion poll that had said that Kamala Harris has a bit of a chance of flipping it.
Well, exactly, Gautam. That's been the case with many states in this particular elections, Iowa in particular, where, many expected Kamala to do almost, pulling off a rabbit out of the hat there. But, as things stand, still too early to call, but surely it's going neck to neck, and, somewhere Trump has a slight advantage there on that particular seat. But all in all, in many seats, especially Louisiana, Texas, that's almost, Trump is almost certain to win those seats. Things could get interesting. But the big gap opening up, many people calling up and asking the big gap opening up, is it Trump? Is it all the way Trump this time to the White House? I think still early to call, but I think it's an interesting election. You've never seen an American election go so close. And, cultural issues, conservatives, they're very much out. This is the last chance that conservatives have, especially when it comes to, pulling things back. Cultural issues, women's rights, all on the forefront. We'll have to wait and watch whether the Republicans or the Democrats, have they managed to get their voters to come out and vote? That's going to be the big question. And that's where the flip or the swing is going to be.
Yes, certainly. If I could again come to you, Michael Davis, I'm looking at the numbers that Iowa is being projected at the moment. It's not been projected yet. There are still certain numbers that we have where it's being shown as Kamala Harris at 52.7 and Donald Trump at 46.1. If this bears out, do you think that this could be a game changer?
Because most of the math relying on the swing states assumes that everyone's going to get the red states and the blue state that they get every time. So it is significant if she's made a dent. But, that's further west, and the states further west, you're not going to get any serious results probably until way past midnight over here, and maybe well into tomorrow, because, the width of the United States, east and west, that means the time differences. And so those polls are still open out there.
Okay. Ambassador Dev, if I could come to you and ask you about, again, Iowa, what do you make of how things are looking at the moment in terms of any of them, Harris or Trump, flipping a significant state?
So I just want to say that in the case of Iowa, the poll that you mentioned, the pollster herself, very highly respected, but she expressed immense surprise at the result she found. I think that it would be a real gain if, in fact, Kamala Harris wins that state, which is always referred to as ruby red among one of the committed Republican states. I also want to make one other point. You were talking earlier about the environment, climate change, those issues. Actually, young people in the United States, as all over the world, are very concerned about those issues. They do not figure very high because very often they are not part of the questions that pollsters put out when they are seeking the opinion of people that they are polling. Economy, even abortion, all these things come up much higher than climate change, because climate change often doesn't figure as one of the issues that people are questioned on.
Yes, clearly that is one gap that perhaps seems to be there. But Anil, if I could come to you again, in terms of when we saw the campaigning going on, there was much elation when, not when Joe Biden stepped down, but when Kamala Harris became the candidate, much elation in India because of India Connect. She's half Indian descent at least. But as far as the campaign is concerned, when she was campaigning, she didn't really mention India. It was Donald Trump who mentioned India and Hindus as well. Now, do you think that was a conscious choice? Because, again, the issue of gender did not figure much where Kamala Harris is concerned. And Donald Trump said that I will protect women whether they like it or not.
Well, exactly, Gautam. That particular issue about the mention about India, remember Trump has been using that as a bait, especially when it comes to attacking Kamala Harris. He said that if she's elected to the White House will be filled with curry. So remember, it's either ways that it's gone. But when it comes to hitting below the belt, Trump has spared no moment, especially when it comes to hitting Kamala there in this political battle as it got heated up. But looking at those 7 crucial swing states, 6 out of the 7 had swung to blue, especially in the 2020 elections. Can Kamala Harris repeat that? That's the big question that everyone is looking for. North Carolina was the only one that Trump had managed to win. And the challenge gets bigger for Kamala Harris, especially on that lines. Looking at women's rights, that's one cause of concern. That's one sticky topic. That's worked for either sides. So it's all going to boil down to issues that are there before the people and issues that conservatives look at. And that's where this election would see a big play out, especially when the numbers come out.
Well, certainly. Michael Davis, do you feel again issues that one would have thought sitting here in India, in Delhi, would have been of key concern, not that much of a concern, and even played down by at least one side or the other? Why is that the case?
I think in an age when immigration and everything is such a big issue, and the further fact that Kamala was raised by her Indian mother mostly in the African American community, and took great pride in that, going to a prominent African American school. So I think all of that is, there are more African American voters in the United States than Indian voters. So a lot of things are at play there. I would say a more important issue in this election has been gender. And what we're seeing is that Kamala is getting something like 65–70% of the women's vote, and Trump is getting a lot of similar data on the men's vote. So he's especially supported by working class men, and apparently there's a lot of gender discrimination going on in their minds as well, that they don't trust a woman. So we'll probably have to wait till after the election to see how much this played into voting choices and the result. But it has been a major divide on gender in the support of these two candidates.
Yes, but when you look at the election that Donald Trump won against Hillary Clinton, that last ceiling had been broken in terms of the popular vote. Hillary Clinton had won that election in terms of pure number of votes, almost 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. It's just how the Electoral College plays out in terms of how these numbers are divided. All the to the victor goes the spoils is the case here, and it didn't work out in the favor of Hillary Clinton. Do you think this time around it could be different, Ambassador?
I think we just don't know is the reality here. Though I do want to say that on gender issues, the abortion ruling that the Supreme Court had given played a big part in the fact that of the impact that had on the 2020 election for the House and the Senate, which enabled the Democrats to win the Senate. We will have to see also how the Senate races and the Democrat elections go in this time round. Will the Democrats win more than the 4 seats they need to be able to flip the House? Will they be able to retain the Senate by staying where they are, even though 8 of their senators have retired or moved out, and those seats are up for grabs? So the importance of the gender issue, the abortion issue, which is linked also to the composition of the Supreme Court, that may play a bigger role in the House and Senate elections rather than be so evident in the presidential election. That's my sense of it. But again, we have to take account of the fact that there are these, the way it is analyzed, older women are apparently coming out to vote for Kamala Harris, and they are reliable voters because they do come out. Young men who appear to have swung towards Trump are not very reliable voters. It will have to be seen how many of them come out. So how far gender will play in will depend on how far the women come out to vote and how much the men also come out to vote.
Certainly. Another issue, Anil, that figured very prominently in previous elections when Donald Trump used to talk about China, China, China all the time. But this time it seems that the preoccupation with what's been happening in Ukraine and what's been happening in West Asia or Middle East, as the Americans call it, China completely went under the radar, and that is again an issue of key interest to people like you and me who are Indians.
Well, exactly, Gautam. That was, that began at one point of time. It was his primary focus, especially when it comes to, getting America back the honor that it's looking for, getting those jobs back, all that he started off. But he slowly realized that, that's not where, especially when it comes to, striking a chord with the American voters, these issues.
And that's an
especially the one
agenda
on-
that even President Biden took forward.
Well, exactly. That's something, that the Democrats were expected to take forward, but not exactly the Republicans. And Trump slowly realized that, speaking or focusing too much on China was something that he could, it could be a part of his agenda, but it could not be something that, could help him on a larger scale, especially when it comes to getting votes. He's been, cautious, especially with regards to the approach that he's had, especially to the geopolitical affairs. But he's been time and again indicating that, he could have some of the answers to the problems that, especially the conflict zones that are facing. And that, helps, especially when it comes to the voters under 40. There is an uptick, especially when it comes to the voters under 40 who believe that Trump could be the answer, or Trump could be the solution to the problem that the world faces, with America leading the way. And voters above the age of 40 and above believe that Kamala Harris clearly helps America in giving directions to the conflicts and the problems that the world faces. So it's divided between the two. We'll have to wait, once the voting pattern comes out, how exactly the voters, the age group that has come out and voted will clearly give you an indication of, who holds the edge in this particular elections.
All right. I'm told that my colleague Amrapal Singh, who's tracking what Donald Trump is up to at Mar-a-Lago, is with us now. Amrit, just tell us how these projections are being viewed by the Trump camp. Are they upbeat, or do they know there is a story that had already been scripted, because blue is staying blue, red is staying red, and nothing has been flipped so far?
I think in their hearts of hearts, they know that the picture is still not clear. It's still unfolding. It's too early. All the swing states which are counting, if you look at the projections that are coming out, they are too close to call. So they know that. But I mean, let's look at the numbers. And what they are trying to do is they're trying to put a bravado saying, well, we've scored more numbers, but they do actually know. Out of the projections, right now, 99 are projected for Kamala Harris, 198 for Donald Trump. Out of the projections, the Electoral College numbers. They give you a sense, if somebody were to read that Donald Trump is way ahead. But that is not the real story. That does not paint the true picture. Because in the states, you'll have to go to the states to see how it's unfolding. Now, if we look at the states mostly have voted on predictable lines. The states that were red, that voted red the last time, or traditionally have been voting red, are the ones that have voted red. Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Donald Trump has a lead, and that it was expected. Vermont, Kamala has a lead. It was expected. Virginia, Trump has a 2% lead. North Carolina, which is a swing state, he has just about 5% lead with 66% votes counted. He is ahead in the race there. Ohio, West Virginia, Alabama, he was expected to. Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois were expected to go to the Democrats. Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, New York were expected. So really, it is the swing states. And swing states, if you look at the swing states, let's go one by one on the swing states. Let's begin with Georgia, which has about 80% of the votes counted. What is the lead Donald Trump has? 5%. I think it's difficult to reverse the lead when 80% is counted. So Georgia looks most likely shall go the Donald Trump way. Let's look at North Carolina. 66% votes counted, a 5% lead, Donald Trump. Could take North Carolina, could reverse, but could take, because there are close to about 70% votes counted. Now, if you look at, the other swing states, just a moment, Pennsylvania, the most interesting. Now, 44% counted. Harris has a lead of just 1%. So it's a swing state to it's down to the
T.
wire. In the
Yes.
truest sense of the term, it's a swing state. It's to the T. It could go either way. Almost half counted or less than half counted, 44%, 1% vote difference. Look at the other. Look at Arizona. 34% counted, both at a tie. They do not have a lead. Arizona is still not made up its mind. While voting is still going on in Arizona, it's time for them to close. About 33% of the votes have been counted, or just about. Arizona is closing. Okay, now let's look at the other swing states. Michigan, just 17% counted. Harris has a lead of 3%. That's a lead, but 3% could reverse with just 17%. So 83% have to still come in. So Trump could overtake her there. Now, this is a part, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are part of the blue wall. It is a must for Kamala Harris to win if she wants to be the next president of the United States. Doesn't look like that she's anywhere near to a clear win there. That's what the swing states really look like. Wisconsin, again, Trump has a lead, but of just 1% with 37 counts. 37% votes counted.
Yes, while you're at
so
it,
the rest of the
Amrit.
states have voted. Gotham, yeah, just 1 second. Gotham, I'll complete in within now 5 seconds. All states, none of the states have flipped. The swing states are too close to call. That is the situation right now.
But
Yes, Gotham.
Amrit, while you're at it, I would suggest that you look at Iowa as well, where earlier Harris had a substantial lead. Now that has dropped substantially again, and just 12%, 32% reporting right now. And we're looking at the AP numbers, although on screen
that's
we're
right.
referring to Reuters only. Reuters is being a little more conservative than AP.
Yes. So Iowa, Donald Trump now has a lead of 1% with 33% counted. Remember that survey which said that Kamala is taking Iowa? It's too close to call.
Yes, again, too close to call. Now, having talked so much about, and you stick around, Amrit, and I would request my guests to also stay with us. Now, having talked so much about the crucial swing states, we get you our special report on, what are these states all about? Not just which states are these, but why they have really become swing states through the years.
About 240 million people are eligible to vote in this year's US presidential election, but only a relatively small numbers are likely to decide the next president. Experts believe only a handful of swing states could plausibly decide who will be the next president of the United States. In this election, there are 7 swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Let's take a closer look at them. First up with Arizona. Arizona has 11 electoral college votes. Arizona helped Democrats win the presidency in 2020, backing their candidate for the first time since the 1990s. Bordering Mexico for hundreds of miles, Arizona is a key focus in the nation's immigration debate. Arizona has been at the center of a heated abortion access debate. Next swing state, Georgia. Georgia counts for 16 electoral college votes. In 2020, Biden won Georgia by 13,000 votes. A third of Georgia's population is African American, one of the highest in the country. Up next is Michigan. Michigan has 15 electoral college votes. Michigan has picked the winning presidential candidate in the last 2 elections. Michigan has the largest proportion of Arab Americans. Michigan is now a symbol of backlash over Biden's support for Israel in the Gaza conflict. The next battleground state is Nevada. Nevada has 6 electoral college votes. Nevada has voted Democrat for the last several elections. Both Trump and Harris are vying to win Nevada's sizable Latino population. North Carolina is the next swing state. North Carolina has 16 electoral college votes. In 2020, North Carolina backed Trump by 74,000 votes. North Carolina borders Georgia and shares some of its top electoral concerns. Key poll considerations of North Carolina include immigration. Nearly 61% of North Carolina's population is North Hispanic white. Pennsylvania is the next swing state. Pennsylvania has 19 electoral college votes, the most of any of the swing states. Pennsylvania in 2020 backed Biden by 82,000 votes. Pennsylvania is a key state for both Trump and Harris. Pennsylvania is the state where Trump survived his first assassination attempt. The economy is a top issue in Pennsylvania, with residents feeling the strain of inflation and rising cost of living. Last is Wisconsin. Wisconsin has 10 electoral college votes. In 2020, Biden won Wisconsin by 21,000 votes. Wisconsin picked the winning presidential candidate in both 2016 and 2020. Inflation has become the primary concern for voters in Wisconsin. But why do some states swing and others don't? Swing states can change over time. Not all remain swing states permanently. Arizona recently became a swing state, while traditional ones like Florida and Ohio have leaned Republican. Various factors can turn a state into a swing state or solidify its political alignment. Demographic shifts from population movement for jobs or retirement can impact a state's political landscape. Mihir Maikuri's report for DD India.
And while we were playing out that report about swing states, another projection is coming in. This time, Iowa has been projected for Donald Trump. Iowa, again, a state much talked about in the run-up to the election, which was very close to the election day. A very, very highly regarded opinion poll had come out, which had said that Harris has a chance of winning it, 3% lead over Trump, but that does not seem to be the case where the current projection is concerned. A very, very significant one, this projection. We'll have to wait and see if it abides, if it stays. But for now, for Iowa, the projection is 51.3% for Donald Trump and 47.2% for Kamala Harris. If I could come to Michael Davis, what do you make of what's happening now in Iowa? We talked about it earlier, and now the situation's changed and the projection is coming favoring Trump for Iowa.
Well, Iowa's long a Republican state. The one poll that had Harris ahead even surprised her, and it probably was an outlier because most of the other polls have gone the other way. And so that belt through there is really strongly Republican. As the video you discussed mentions, these states are swing states because they're kind of close, but not Iowa wasn't one of the swing states. So it is not a surprise that it would go for Trump.
Yes, certainly. Ambassador Dev, if I can come to you and ask you, in previous elections, not too further away from 2024, even in 2016, there used to be a larger number of swing states. It's fallen when it comes to 2024. Why is that the case?
That reflects how deeply divided the United States population is and becoming more and more divided. So they are more and more in their camps, whether the camp is red or the camp is blue. And this, of course, is linked to the impact of social media, the fact that people live in a information bubble and only listen to those news sources which affirm the kind of leanings or views that they already hold. And this, of course, is true of the United States, but I think we should look around the world and see it's also a global phenomenon in India as well. Europe, if you look at election outcomes there, that people are becoming more and more divided, adhering more and more strongly to the views that they hold.
Amrit, if I could come to you again, you are at Mar-a-Lago. What can you tell us about what is happening there? Do we see a scenario where in an hour or two from now, Donald Trump could come out like he did in 2020, though he lost in 2020, he could come out and say, I won?
He could do that. The man that he is, he could very well do that. He is with his team inside and his vice presidential candidate, his running mate, inside Mar-a-Lago, closely watching the results that are coming in. There is a convention center a little distance away where his supporters have gathered. That's where the election watch party is. If he wins, then he comes to the party. If he doesn't, then he calls reporters over at Mar-a-Lago. That's what we're hearing. And then he says what he says. Gautam.
Okay. Do you think that is the reason why Michael Davis, Trump, earlier when he had voted, he came out and say that he will accept whatever the result is, provided the count is fair. So he wanted to sort of not outright say that cheating has been done, although he said that in case of Philadelphia and Detroit. But overall, he didn't want to say that the polls are all wrong, everything has been manipulated, because what would he have to say if he eventually did indeed win?
Well, basically, throughout all the election, he said that he would accept the result if he wins. So that he said one time that, oh, as long as it's fair. Well, he thinks if it's fair, then he wins. So this is kind of the hardline view he's taken. Accusations of cheating are not taken seriously. He said that about the 2020 election, and none of it was found to be true. And so he tends to use this as a kind of leverage, and it's not very honest on his part. He's even told that he lost the election in 2020, but he still persisted to this day to claim it was cheating. In fact, his efforts to overturn it are probably the closest to cheating that we're seeing in the election. So some people like to point out that Trump accuses everyone of being like him. And so this is what goes on regarding claims of cheating, and he will certainly make them if we find out that he loses based on fair counts. And I've been watching. I voted here in the United States today, and I also have friends working in this area. And because of all these accusations, there's been great care regarding voting. So I'm not expecting any cheating in any way that would affect the numbers.
I think Amrit wants to add something to what you were saying in Mar-a-Lago. Go ahead, Amrit. I believe you were gesticulating.
Yes, Gautam, he's been doing that, casting aspersions on the electoral process right through the campaign. And this is not the first time he's done that. He did that in 2020. He did that in 2016. He won in 2016. He said there was electoral fraud. I think my sense is, one, it's a personality type. He is, the other, he's using that as a strategy. He did that again when he came to vote. I was there at that polling booth in West Palm Beach where he came to vote, and he said that after casting his vote. I think that's a strategy to get his voters out, because the contest, especially in the swing states, is so close. The person who wins is the person who gets most of his or her voters out. So I think it was a strategy to tell the Republican voters, well, you are being cheated upon, come out and vote, let's defeat them, to get them out. And I think that was a part of a strategy also. If he wins, he'll say, well, they did fraud, but we came out and defeated them at their game.
Yes, certainly. And it is also reflected in the fact, Ambassador Deo, that earlier Trump used to say that do not rely on early voting. That is not something that we should be doing. That is something that can be manipulated. He said all sorts of things. And then he started encouraging his base to go in and vote early, although he did not do it himself.
These are all, in sometimes they become matters of detail. There are analysts who are saying it's not a question of will Trump, deny the outcome of the elections if it turns out that he has not won. But if, it is so much expected of the way his elections and his speeches have gone earlier, that he will always allege cheating unless he comes out the winner. And so there is some concern about that. But equally, there is the argument that because of what happened in 2020, the government is much more prepared to deal with the kind of riot that broke out, or which he is accused of having instigated after the results came out in which he had lost. So I think there is a kind of uneasiness about whether enough of his followers will want to take to the streets, maybe some might be violent in the event that he loses the election. On the other hand, he's also the kind of personality that believes he would win, and that if he says it often enough, that he's winning, that he will win. So these are kind of the elements of elections in the US, which are in a way what the Americans say are baked in. People are afraid that if the election doesn't go his way, he may try and make trouble. But on the other hand, people also believe that the government is now much better prepared to deal with any outcomes in case there is trouble on the streets.
Okay, while you were speaking, Ambassador, there are two things happened, two more updates. One, we have a projection, a fresh projection, where Ohio with 17 electoral votes has been projected in favor of Donald Trump, and Bitcoin has jumped to record levels because traders seem to be betting on a Trump win. The Bitcoin, which is the most valued cryptocurrency, the biggest cryptocurrency, has risen 7% and crossed 75,000 US dollars. Anil, what do you make of that?
Gautam, it's very much on expected lines. There was a blip that markets world over had seen, and the early morning numbers, purely with regards to the stock markets in US too, clearly indicated that the Dow Jones, also the tech-heavy Nasdaq, clearly showing an uptick, over 1% rise, 1% and above rise, especially in the numbers there in the stock markets, and very much of a trickle-down effect that you see world over when it comes to the stock market. So we'll have to slowly wait and watch. But surely the Bitcoin development that you've seen, the record numbers there clearly indicate that they are expecting the Bitcoin, at least the people trading in Bitcoin are looking at a big positive change that is expected to come with Trump leading the way. But too early to call, I would still say. The 7 swing states are the decisive one. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, all 3 would decide how this particular election pans out. If Kamala Harris manages to win all 3, they are all blue walls. They are traditionally blue walls where, the Democrats managed to hold those seats. If those 3 come together, Pennsylvania with 19 seats there, Michigan with almost 15, as Wisconsin with 10, clearly would decide where the next president will come. And remember, the last 2 presidents, the last 2 presidential elections, the person and the party that won the elections in Wisconsin generally managed to reach the White House. The percentage that has decided the winner there in Wisconsin has been 1%, a little more than 1%. So we'll have to wait and watch for these 3 swing states, how they go about, and that's where this elections will unfold.
Yes, for Harris, Michigan, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the blue wall states, is something that she needs to hold to win. Right now, Michigan, 20% of the estimated vote tallied according to Edison Research. Trump has 47.5 and Harris has 50.6. So Harris has a bit of a lead there, 2.1% according to Edison Research, but it's not been projected in her favor yet, which is not the case where Ohio is concerned, although again on expected lines, isn't it, Michael Davis?
So far, that's the case. And I think the biggest caveat you have to hold back on many of these swing states is that the rural areas have come through with their vote count generally earlier. That was the case in 2020. And then people go to bed, even Trump declared his victory last time around. And then you wake up in the morning and you find out that the urban vote has come in, and the urban vote always in the United States favors the Democrats. And so it's very hard to predict this.
Which is why perhaps Trump said that there's been cheating happening in Philadelphia and in Detroit.
Right, when it's basically just the counting of the votes in urban and rural. And also some states limit counting of early voting or mail-in voting until the election closes. And so a lot of that stuff also favors Democrats. So the Democrats tend to do better with some of the late counting. This is not going to affect the hard red states, but it does affect the swing states.
Yes, certainly. Well, with that, I'm going to have to close this particular segment of the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael Davis and Ambassador Deo as well, and my colleagues Amritpal Singh from Mar-a-Lago in West Palm Beach, Florida, and Anil Thomas from the newsroom. We will keep our coverage, the continuous coverage of the US elections going, because we still don't have any results. It's just projections as of now, although Trump looks to be far ahead of Kamala Harris at the moment. But the picture hasn't really changed much from the last time around, because everything hinges on the 7 swing states, and their projections are still to come in. We have some leads, but even that is not conclusive. And as far as the results are concerned, well, that's a way off. So we'll keep our coverage going. My colleague Mark Lynn will be here to take this forward with you. From me, for the moment, that's it. But all the latest will continue right here on DD India. So do keep watching this special coverage.